I'm just going to do is play around with this little roller. You can buy them in art shops, they're quite fun. But if you're doing larger areas of colour, more abstract bands and so on, then it's quite a nice little idea, isn't it? So let's mix a bit of colour up with that. Get some water over here now. And see how just quickly you can produce an effect on here. Want that lighter background first. So now, when you're mixing a light colour, don't put the colour in first and then the white. You'd end up with a gallon. Put the white first and then tint in your little bits of colour afterwards. Otherwise, you know, go subtly, in other words. So I'm going to take some white. It's a fairly cool yellow. Now, there are cool and warm colours in everything. A warm blue would be going towards a purple. A cool blue is a turquoise. A warm red would be a cadmium red, which is a bright orangey red. A cool red would be more a purpley red. A warm green would be a browny green. And a cool green is a more bluey green. And a yellow, lemon yellow is a cool, whereas yellow ochre is a warm. You can see there the lemon yellow on the left and the yellow ochre on the right. They're both yellows, but that is warmer than this one. So we're playing with those all of the time. So I'm going to take a little bit of my lemon yellow, because I want a fairly cool, yellowy, a little touch of the yellow ochre, just to bring it a fraction warmer there, into the white. And just for fun, I don't want it too bright. I'm going to take it down a fraction with a bit of cerulean blue. That should be for the moment. So I'm going to explore and I'm going to experiment a bit. Let's have some fun. Let's see if we can get this going on here. Let's see the sort of textures we can get as well. Now, working onto a dark ground. One of the beauties of a dark ground is that these dark pieces can be left showing through. Again, Constable used it. If you look at some of Constable's fast studies, you'll see the branches are actually not painted on. They're brown undercoat left showing through. When I went to see the Monet exhibition, for instance, as well in London, some of these art experts, you know, in inverted commas, they call themselves, they've got it completely wrong. I mean, Monet was very commercial for his age in the year. He actually did not build up layers and layers and layers of oil paint, as they're telling us. When I, as an artist, got closer and looked at what he'd actually done, he'd done a technique I'd been using earlier on for doing delphiniums, where he'd built up with a filler, the underpainting. I use ordinary household fine filler, PVA glue, and mix that up, and build up with a palette knife and brushes underneath, very much as you see some of these prints that are varnished, you know, they varnish in the direction of the brushstrokes. Built up like that, and he did something similar, obviously with some sort of filler, and then he's primed it with yellow ochre, and he's just scumbled over the surfaces with all these thick, heavy colours, making it look as if he's done hours and hours of work and thicknesses of paint, but it's not, he's built it up beforehand. It's a studio painting, you know. So we can put oils over acrylics, we can't put acrylics over oils. So let's build a bit more of that colour, now we've got something going there. There's a series of different colours. And what I'm finding already, you notice the sort of texture I'm getting here. Now we can make textures with brushes, but with watercolour you can use salt to make texture. You can add salt onto the wet paint and as it dries it gives a texture. You can put cling film or crinkled onto the wet paint and give an effect of a sail. All sorts of effects you can get with watercolour. Same with oils. You can use rag, you can use a sponge, you can use a bit of gauze, you can use... And what I'm quite enjoying some of this texture here, which is leaving some of the dark showing through. And because acrylic dries very, very quickly, what we're going to find is that I'm going to be able to put one texture over another quite rapidly here and use that possibly for my leaves in the background as well. So let's have a bit of fun. What I've got to watch, of course, is I'm going to lose my, my drawing I've got if I'm not careful. Does it really matter? Because I can work into it. So we'll explore. It's not mixed media, it's just mixed technique. If I want it a bit wetter, if I want a bit more coverage, I can wet the... So let's have fun just building up a background with this. Bit warmer that colour is. I'm going to get some paint on this table that scene. Library services will be after me. Perhaps I should just sign the table at the end and they can sell it. So I'm putting a bit more yellow ochre in now to make a slightly warmer yellow there. Let's really get this paint going. I want to get on with this painting and enjoy it. The whole purpose of doing the painting is to enjoy, so I enjoy sharing, I enjoy doing this with you and sharing. and this is why I do the videos. It's the films I'm making are actually an extension to my art now, I find, because it isn't just me doing a painting that goes on a wall somewhere it's never seen again. Millions of people see these films on YouTube, because I put a lot on free as well. I mean, I've got 190 films on YouTube, you know, up to 3 hours long, some of them. Everything from taxidermy to how to do archery, how to, you know, because I used to be an archery instructor and all sorts of things years ago. And it's all there, and I get lovely comments coming back. I get the odd nutter as well, but usually I get the odd, you know, I get the weird ones too. But no, generally speaking, I get some marvellous comments coming back, and it's so nice to be able to share. Now, this is why, one of the reasons I gave the library services these films, was because I used to be in Grimsby, and I know Cleethorpes well, because I taught at Cleethorpes School for 1 year, years ago now. I taught for 25 years or so originally as a head of art, craft design and tech, and that was in the state and private systems. And I thought, well, it would be rather nice for, so you can come and get along like that, look, it would be rather nice for you guys to have the films to watch. And I said, how are you doing, Jane? She said, well, not a lot of interest. I said, well, that's strange, perhaps people just don't know they're there. So I'll do this little demo, and then people can either say, oh no, that was crappy, don't want to watch those anymore, or they'll say, no, that might be worth having a look at. So Jane's DVDs are over there, but I've produced 3 or 4 more since as well, in the Caribbean and so on, and they're in several areas of painting. There's a foundation series, for instance, of pottery. 6 hours of filming. I mean, most films only do 30 minutes and they charge you 15, 18 quid. I do a minimum of 2.5 hours. So there's usually a single disc at 3 hours or double disc at 6 hours. And that goes through every way of making pots you can do, basically, from mould making to glazing to decoration. By the time you've seen those 2 films, you could do your own, make up your own pottery. Let's just get some more texture. And we'll gradually build this up, one colour over another. I can just see where I am from doing this. If I leave these darks behind, you know, we'll have a painting starting already. I don't really, it's going to be awkward that. A little bit more, that's better. There we go. Quite fun, isn't it? You wouldn't have thought of starting an oil painting using, but you could use oil paint with this as well, remember? It's just that you'd have to wait for it to dry more. It's a bit of a pain.
No, I know you can use a roller, you can do the living room.
No, this is the expert for that. I can't be doing all that standing, leaning, that's my excuse. Leaning back. Alright, so we still want a fairly cool. Do a mural.
That's showing your age, Pete.
Not a mural, a muriel.
I've seen him at the carnations.
That's right.
Oh yes, the curry flying
So
ducks.
must have been told when I was a bit of an arms, you know.
That's because you're 10 years younger than me, don't you?
Or at least.
So this is quite fun, isn't it? I'm quite enjoying this. Sod you lot, I'm going to go draw my poses. I'm not going on the carpet, no, we're all right. I've got all sorts of fun stories on the other side of the field. This is because of my very bad singing, or because the Irish songs are something to use on...
It didn't rain, did it?
No, I can't. You can't pay me for doing that either. Now, one of the beauties of this, that would have been all right, because being acrylic it wouldn't have mattered. But
Cross down there.
yeah, let's get this lot off, and that'll be all right.
I was once chased by a gull if we were camping, a young gull, and his front feet were going and so I just run like Mary Ellen, jumped over the wall.
Well, good for you, because if they get you, it can be nasty, can't it? Right. So I'm going to start actually working in with the brush a bit now. I haven't done that brush work. Let's start working with some of these lights in between here. Just quite loosely again. You'll be surprised how loosely you can work doing this.
You're still on acrylic.
I'm going to stay with acrylic at the moment all the way through until I've got a basic foundation of my lights. Now, medium tones. Well, the trick I'm doing here actually is to put a lot of the medium tones on, and then I can work my lights and darks over that. And with reflections, not so much happening here in the way that I'm going to mention, but Do your verticals first normally, and then try and get the horizontals in afterwards. You'll find that makes a lovely reflection. So it's just a little trick to remember as we go on. I'm just going to use short brush strokes now to work with this texturing. Just find some of these medium tones in between the branches. Very, very loosely. This jigsaw way of working. It's a bit warmer down there, so let's have a little brown here. There's a brown going on there. Let's get some of that in the doggies. Just to establish, I need to establish my tones. I need to make sure one colour is working right to another from the beginning. So let's do that now. There's sunlight coming in down here, dappling with the water. Just to establish these tones. Now, cerulean blue is a very cool blue. So I'm using cerulean at the moment. A little bit of green into it, just to give these cool background colours. Get this dappled effect of light, this effect of light, this atmosphere, this enjoying mood and I could carry on with the acrylics and paint it all in acrylics, nothing to stop me. It's just fun today to be able to use all of these methods together and enjoy and explore. And the painting will just, like a jigsaw, start to appear. I think you're seeing that already. It's just starting to make sense as I go along now. No, it isn't. Yes, it is.
Have you ever tried those acrylics so you can unlock and carry on? Them Atelier, they come from Australia. You have a spray bottle and you spray on water in it just to keep them while you're working. But if you stop painting and then a day later you can come back and unlock it with an unlocking.
Right. Let me tell you a cheaper way maybe than that, which I use, and it's called a Stay Wet palette. And the cheapest way is to buy a thin sandwich box, about a foot by 10 inches, put in the bottom a layer of paper towel, put over the top a sheet of greaseproof paper, wet it, and put your paints on top of that. Keep one for mixing and one for... And the main thing is, for the one for mixing, do not tilt it at any time because you find that they all slide down. But that will keep wet forever. If you close it up, your paints will stay wet for good. Yeah, great. Did you know you can actually freeze oil paint as well? I could take that palette, put it into the freezer with a bit of cling film over the top, and it would thaw out.
Saves buying any more, doesn't it?
You know, the little tricks like that. There's lots of things that's just remembering more. You know, as you're mentioning it, you can buy water-based oil paint nowadays. It doesn't smell of turps. I like the smell of turps. And I think, well, what's the point? I might use acrylic, but it's slower. There are all sorts of paints out for people now, yeah. So that might help you. But Stay Wet palette, you can buy them, and they cost an arm and a leg. Just buy a sandwich box.
So what was it? Paper towel, then greaseproof paper?
Yeah, paper towel to hold as your reservoir, and greaseproof paper over the top for the paint to go onto, and it soaks through and keeps it damp.
It soaks in the grease.
So where's the damp come from?
You put water in.
On the paper towel?
Yeah. So when you've done that, you don't put too much in, it'll all be flooding. But no, you put the water in over the whole thing. So you put your towel in and you put the greaseproof paper over the top. Then just pour some water in, and the whole thing gets damp and stays wet. But it gives a membrane on top with the greaseproof paper. You see. And all you do then is just throw that away and put another one in when you're finished. And yeah, any more tricks you want? So yes, you know what you're saying is correct, but then the way I've just told you, it really you can use the ordinary acrylics and they'll stay wet for you.
Well wet, put a flag on the top and then greaseproof on that.
The amount of blues in greens, it's what I said. If you have light, there has to be colour. If you had a room, and this is true, if you had a room which was totally white, all the furniture was white, and the lighting was placed in such a way that you could not see shadows, what would you see? Nothing. You bump into everything. So we need tone, we need colour to be able to see things. So if we... darkness is the absence of light. So the only time you're going to see black is if there is totally no light whatever. So you close your eyes, you totally close up, and then you don't see But otherwise there's going to be some sort of colour. So even black, like that camera, will be a colour. I'll be painting colours for that, like we said about Prussian blue and so on. So we're going now, still on medium tones. It's still not the darkest and the lightest I can do by any means at all. I'm just losing some of this black now and finding my way into some of these mid-tones and little areas of leaves, and which will make sense as I build up more and more and more with the oils in a moment. We'll have this feeling of cascades of leaves and light shining behind. And you see I've got two different colours on my brush there. I'm actually using the blue at the same time as the green. Some of it's stronger than other. A bit more blue into that. How are we doing for time? Pushed, I've got to try and do this in half an hour now. Have you got another 10 minutes or so you can give me, or you're right? Yeah. So if you wanted to work, I mean, I've done this out of doors, I've gone into far more detail. I've painted, say, the background to a whole flower garden in half an hour, and within 10 minutes of that been able to go straight on with the oils and finish it in an hour or so. It's so much quicker, I haven't got to build up. Equally, if you're painting a la primer, if you're painting fat on lean, in other words, this is the lean paint, and I put fatter on top, the board absorbs it well enough that if you use the brush lightly, it is a matter of touch, as is watercolour, it's tactile, you can still put heavy paint over heavy paint over heavy paint and build it up without it lifting from underneath. Right. One of the great pleasures in painting this way is being able to put in these highlights, being able to put in the darks and lights. So let's take that area for instance and show you just what I mean. Let's get the brush going with a bit of terps onto it. Right, it's a fairly warm, a great time, but their system is totally different. They play bowls, they go to the bar and they eat and drink and eat and more drink, but actually, creatively, it's more limited than you would expect.
Eating and drinking still, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Bottles of wine at 50p a bottle, I mean, it was quite reasonable, you know.
I was always happy.
Why'd you come back then? What was it?
I can't remember now.
Do you plan exactly where each little dot and dash is?
No, I've got it here and I'm just thereabouts. I'm doing a painting about something. Nobody's been there. You can't tell me that that branch was 2 foot to the left or not. As long as it works here. You're the artist. You can change things as you want. It's your painting. As long as the painting works in the end. I'm just working about this atmosphere and this light. I'm going back to the time I remembered. It's bringing back memories. I'm trying to evoke that atmosphere and light and turn out something that somebody's going to want to enjoy on their walls as well. Down there. Right. Let's go back to my other brush. Let's look at some of these colours. I just want to, at the moment, get as far as I can with getting some of the colour on. You can just see the various, how this light and dark works. I'm using a little bit of violet now. Some colours you can't make. Watercolours, if you've ever tried cobalt violet, it's wonderful. Not a colour you can make, but there's, obviously some paints, some colours you just cannot mix, and cobalt violet is one of them. It gives you a violet a bit like I'm putting on now. So if you want to make a note of that one, go buy some cobalt violet, lovely colour. For your flower painting especially. Rose is another one that you can't make, and especially in oils. So it's another colour you do need to have in your palette. Obviously the primary colours, but...
Is it safe?
I'm still here, but then look at the state of me, so... So no, I wouldn't get it then in that case. No, all of these paints are supposed to be, I mean, for instance, chrome green, I mean, it used to be lethal because it was actually chrome, whether they're still using. There's not many lead-based, I mean, titanium white is a safe one, flake white should be a lead white, so then you may be risking flake white, but how much are you going to get in your hands? If you're worried about that, wear some surgical gloves, but... Right, let's just look at these different blues for fun. Here is some neat cobalt. Neat cobalt blue, just straight onto there for fun, just to show you the difference in the blues. And how that shines against that for a start. Now I'm going to put on a bit of, just to show you what the difference is, a little bit of ultramarine blue into that, and look at the strength of that blue. And now you can see how colours work one to another. You're only going to put one colour on, it changes the entire painting, doesn't it? How that warmer blue now can work against that violet look here. And that green, that blue is coming into the greens. It's going to be reflecting on the leaf shapes. And how much darker can we go? That seems fairly dark, but I'm deliberately now going to make some nice darks. I'm going to take, was it nasty dark? I'm going to take some of the ultramarine and the brown. Yeah? Yes. And you thought it was dark before, but now you see I'm using mid-tones. So, here we go. Get that branch broken down through there. And suddenly all that gets pushed back. I'm using a fairly heavy brush, but I'm going to have to come in with rigours if I want finer. Cool and warm darks. In fact, even the doggy needs a bit of dark around it here. So in our armoury, what do we have? We have warm against cool, we have light against dark, we have rough against smooth. We have the opposites in the colour circle. And don't mistake colour intensity with tone. In some of the demonstration notes I give out, I don't think it's in these, it's certainly in the DVDs. If you photograph, say, yellow next to blue, the yellow looks brighter when you look at it, that's colour intensity, but as you turn it into black and white, it will actually be the same tone. So the difference between colour intensity and tone. When you want to see tone, squint. If you want to see this painting tonally now, squint your eyes down. I can only just be able to see it, and it blends it all together. If you want to see more colour, then widen your eyes more. Right, I want more drawing of the eye towards the foreground. I'm deliberately going to add more brown to my dark down here. I'm putting in almost pure burnt sienna into this now to try and draw the eye forward here. Lovely way to work. Medium tones and working outwards. Even when I'm doing an ordinary landscape. But there are lots of different demos by me on there, short ones. And in fact, the entire Cuba film is actually on there, so, but you don't get the quality quite, obviously. So to use a very deep brown or very deep purple is quite fun for your base colour, as I've done here. But it's still not as dark as we can go with the oils, as you can see. So more blues up here. There's a lot more blue into this, into these leaves up here. So this is pure ultramarine going on now. How to paint very complicated pictures in an easy way, just as I've shown you with those figure paintings and the watercolours. You have the choice to go as detailed as you want. You're the one in control painting like this. You can stop whenever you like, but if you start in a very tight way, you'll stop from the start if you're not careful. I haven't gone down to my darkest. You know, I tend to reserve, just in case, the very lightest and darkest till the very end, in case I need to use them. The consistency of the paint that you get is important. Now just working a nice thin creamy colour up to try and get some of these branches with the rigger. So I'm using a rigger now to put in these twigs. It gets quite painful for me at this stage because I'm actually having to keep my arm up there and I've got arthritis in my elbows and shoulders. So, you know, it can't be helped. It's just something one has to live with and bear with. But usually the pleasure of painting itself takes it beyond. You just keep going. You don't. I just so enjoy painting. I get carried away into this. It's like being in a dream in a way. It's much better than taking drugs or.
Therapeutic, really, isn't
It really is, yes. This way of working. That's why I like people to enjoy these ways of working that I'm showing you, because they are therapeutic ways. They're so loose and alive, and you're not just copying a photograph or trying to make a reproduction of a postcard. Or
you forget about the needs of the day and what fills you up today and just get on with it. Painting.
So, mid-tones, lights and darks, catching the little effects of the light across these trees. Great fun, it really is. So I do hope you're going to have a go at some of these ways. Good. I might be reflecting down there a bit. Do a squiggly line there for a reflection. There you go. Now let's look at some of these lighter greens I was telling you about, just in case we run out of time. What's what we're doing now? We're just on time now, aren't we? So if I really want to start making some, now I'm going to use some pure greens from here, these emeralds and bright greens. Let's just shove a few in to see what I mean. Look, here's the sunlight coming down, cascading through here. And it's not just our warm greens, there's our cooler greens as well. So this is a nice cool green going into the shadows here, and almost too warm. I want to just take that down a bit. But how we can now work up these lights and darks over the top of this. See what I mean? It gives a beautiful richness, doesn't it? Down here the same, a little bit more yellow into that, so a fraction more of this colour maybe, coming down into this bit of water here. Much more yellowy green into there, so a little bit more. Keep putting in these highlights here and there to balance the painting out. But you've got the idea, yeah? I've hopefully given you lots of ideas. Now is your question time. Well, I'll just keep working. If anybody wants to leave now, they can. If anybody wants to ask questions now, they can. You know where I am, you know the website. Right, questions, all good ones.
I've done watercolours, and when you do watercolours, you start light.
That's right, light to dark, yes.
But in oils, it's the other way.
In oils, you can any way you want. In oils, I'm working from the mid-tones outwards most of the time. But you've any direction you like to go with the acrylics and oils.
So it doesn't matter.
No. It's just establishing those. If you start with a middle tone, obviously you can establish what you're doing more easily, can't you? You know, because you can work your way outwards as I'm doing here. Whereas if you start with the lightest or the darkest, you can't be sure you're going to be too light or too dark. So that's what I'm getting at.
I'm only just starting now, so, you know, it's so different, and I've got to keep remembering that I'm doing.
Well, there's a whole film on them, and it's on these textures. Just building until I feel it's ready. I have to stand back a bit and stand up occasionally and have a good look at it. And, there should be some lighter colour coming just there. And it's, one or two marks can make such a difference like that. I'll go a bit longer yet and do a bit more on this. That's a very light colour there actually, so let's have a look what we can do with that. Just verging on the white.
It amazes me with all, it's just, you just seem to be working with just dots and dashes.
That's it,
and
just
swatches.
put in like a jigsaw, little bits in.
You must know exactly where they're going.
Well, I'm only putting them approximately here.
Yeah. But the picture actually comes, now if I was to go and do loads of dots and dashes, etc., it would just look messy.
No, do it the way I've shown you and make the right colours to the right places like a jigsaw and it will happen, trust me.
Yeah.
Work from the mid-tones outwards, just try and get those colours right. Yeah, come and have a closer look if you want. Can I just borrow you two guys a minute for the press photograph? Would that be alright? Yeah. Because if I cover you standing here, so that you're looking at that painting, can you just move them if you need, love? That's right. If you just go behind you like this. Good, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It's actually amazed me how it's
So you can... Yeah. Well, we nearly finished this painting the other day in the demonstration, so I brought it into my small studio now just to finish off. And we'll work in it for another half an hour or so to see if we can get that done. It's more detail and enjoy ourselves. Well, I think I've almost come to the end of this painting now. I could keep working on it, but we can add more and more and more and just make it too fiddly. So I think we've got enough colour here to give the atmosphere and light that we want. I might play around with one or two of the darks just a little bit more, but not much more. Just a few of these leaves that are darker against here, maybe. Against the light in the background, just to make it look a little bit brighter coming through that background there. But it doesn't need much. You can see how that just draws it forward a bit. And I have to decide what I'm going to sign it in there. There's a bit of blue in it as well, just to cool it down. So there we are, a nice quick and loose way to paint a very complicated scene. This Labrador swimming in a Quebec woodland lake. Painting, we're going to do an acrylic underpainting first of all, just to get some of the basic greens going and some of the details much quicker than using the oil paint straight away, because obviously we can paint oils over acrylics, we can't acrylics over oils. So I can paint the acrylics on, let them dry, and then later I'll be able to work up all the details and leaves and flowers. But today I just want to establish the underpainting of the greens and possibly some of the underpainting and working into the figure. And then I want to actually start working on the figure itself, probably complete most of the figure, before I work very loosely over the gardens later. So I'm just going to work through a whole series of different greens here as an underpainting of detail. The reason I've done a dark primer to start with is because I want that dark colour to show through as well. We're actually going to use it. It's not a black, it's actually a very, very deep mauve. Right, let's start by putting in this grass area here, so a green for that. I'm going to use yellow ochre, blue to start with, but it's quite a warm green. Yep. Just to get rid of this black at first. And I'll leave some areas of where these flowers and leaves are coming up into, so that I just know where things are going to be. So this is just to get rid of, totally get rid of the dark canvas to start off with. Not to make these greens too warm yet. There we go, get the idea. And it's comparative. It's like a jigsaw. We're putting the right colours in the right shapes in the right places gradually. Bit too cool, a bit of terrorism has gone onto my brush there. I don't want it quite as cool as that. Get the worker back into it, look. Mix it on the canvas. Now you see how the colour's sinking a bit with the dark underpainting coming through as well, so we've got to put the colour on a couple of times to make sure that it stays on the surface and doesn't sink and go too dark. Right, let's establish that. It may be some of this paint we won't change at all. I might not use much oil on it at all, but other areas are going to be quite strong with our oil paint over the top. So when you've got the right colour on your brush and you see it somewhere, use it, wherever it is. Put it on the canvas, and you won't have to mix it again later then, will you? Make the marks about what you're painting, so your brush strokes or drawing marks should always be about the object and the surface that you're painting. It's quite a bit darker and cooler down behind your shoulder here. You can put the light colours on top of that in more detail afterwards. First thing is just to establish a variety of greens. What we'll do now, as I build up the rest of this, we'll put the camera onto high speed, just so you can see all the underpainting being completed, and then we'll work on it more slowly later with the oils. Reach out with a long brush like this, can reach out and feel into these shapes. So you see, by using these smaller strokes, these little strokes, one over another, cool over warm, light over dark, and so on, we gradually bring up the effect of layers and layers and layers of these leaves, which we'll be able to strengthen later with the other paint as well. These colours are sinking all into the canvas and darker into the dark ground, so that gives us a chance to go over them again and make them stronger and use them in different layers as well. Well, the underpainting of the flowers has all been done. The garden's basically, all I have to do is really push up all the leaves and the really bright flowers later with the oils when I want, which is great fun. Could go straight ahead and do it now, but I want to save this for a demonstration I'm doing, so it's ideal for that purpose. But I want to get as much of the figure finished as I can, and we're now just working into some of the lighter colours that are reflecting over the dress. And we're still playing with our various warms and cools. It's surprising how a little bit of cooler or warmer colour can change things completely. As you see here, I'm just putting on these little details on the dress, which are affecting it tremendously. Of course, making the skin tone warmer when they do it. Because this is a cream and it's a cool yellow, so it's ideal for just picking out some of these highlights. Don't want to do too much of it. I really want the effect of sunlight glistening around us. Well, the figure is almost there because all I want to do now is paint the darks and lights in around it with the flowers, and I think we'll have what we need. So we'll just do a little bit more in the way of decoration on the dress. Just some little counterpoints of light, some lights working against darks here, we just need picking out. There we go, that'll do then for that. I think we'll just put a few more leaves into the background around here because it just needs a little bit more filling in places, just to bring some of these colours out and make sense of them. That's just to give you an idea. Next time we come back to this will be on the oil paints. And we're going to continue with this oil painting now, oil over acrylic. As you can see, my oil paints are now ready here, and the acrylics are well dried. My usual palette of paints. With these colours I find I can do nearly everything. The thing I want to do first is continue with the face area here. You know, that bit that comes below the hair. And the acrylics have sunk a lot, and they're rather thin. They give quite a nice effect, but I'm going to be painting a lot more heavily and a lot more impasto now with these colours. I'm going to work around this area firstly then. And there's this difference between the warm and cool shadows. This lovely violet that's going on under there. In fact, let's take a little bit of violet straight away and work it into it and just see what we get. See the strength of the oil paint as compared to the acrylic. Much stronger colour. And if I'd just painted the flowers and the background in, what we'd almost certainly have found is that it wouldn't have worked because it would start like a sore thumb. The stronger oil paints would take over and look wrong. We really want a beautiful vibrance going on here if we can. And it's always a bit worrying when you do something like this because you know you're painting out something that's working reasonably well already, and it means virtually destroying what you've already painted, doesn't it? Which always is a bit disconcerting. As they say, leave well alone. I'm going to put in some neat ultramarine here now, and you see the strength of that cool, and it can be used as a glazed tone. If I thin it down a bit as I'm doing now, see that the colours underneath are just showing through a bit now. But look how much darker that is to everything else, although that will still sink back as well because this canvas is pretty absorbent. Well, I think we've reached the end with just the oil painting I wanted to do because I've just established the basic tones and colours, and you can see the flowers around her hands and right up into her head and dress now. We've really got the basics done to just loosely paint in all of the flowers and just thoroughly enjoy yourself now. I'd been asked to demonstrate at an art celebration day in Mablethorpe, so one of the things that I had planned for this particular painting was to finish it off at this celebration day and finish the acrylics with oils over the top. Quite interesting for the public to see, I thought. Having got my stand set up, got the paint set up in the easel and the camera ready, I was able to sit down and make a start on the painting. The first things I went for were to brighten up some of the red flowers to establish some of the stronger colours, and then almost straight into the lovely blue delphiniums. For garden and flower painting such as this, my impressionist broken colour technique is very useful, where you don't just paint one colour in block, you paint a series of colours next to or over the top of each other. In this case with the delphiniums, it isn't just one or two blues, there are warm colours as well. So I started with some cobalt blue, then some cerulean, then worked in some of the darker ultramarines, and then moved through some of the warmer colours, the violets and the purples and even a little pink, as you can see. And playing these warms and cools of the blues and warms, further warms of the pinks and the reds against this with the purples really made the colours sing and shine as the delphiniums actually do. Next were the purple and pink chrysanthemums. They might just think they were just a bluey pink, but in fact again they're made up of 2 or 3 colours put together with the highlights and light catching the tips of them. So I started again with a cobalt blue and then started working over a very light violet and purple, finishing with very light pinks and even a little bit of cream on the tips of the petals as the sunlight shines across the edges. You'll notice in the bottom left corner the flowers are in shadow, so they're much cooler than the flowers that are out in the warmer sunlight. When you've mixed a colour and are using it, if you see it elsewhere in the painting, well of course you might as well use the paint on your brush and use the paint up and paint there as well. You're trying to keep the whole surface of the painting working at once, never finishing one area completely, although I did actually in this painting confess to finishing most of the figure. But even on the figure I still worked into it later on. There are still adjustments to be made, one colour that you make that you will see back in another part of the painting later, or maybe reflecting. The reds for instance I found reflecting on the flesh of the skin in places and under the arms and so on. So where I've got this paint for the chrysanthemums, I'm also using it elsewhere, a little bit up into the delphiniums and also into the leaves reflecting of the plants. So there are many colours that will be in more than one place, reflecting across the painting and helping to pull it together like a spider's web. Although all of my underpainting and base greens had already been painted with the acrylic, I did need to make them much stronger and pick them out, pull out the light coloured stems catching the sunlight and the highlights over the tips of leaves. Now I did this from the very beginning, gradually picking up some of the stems and leaves, but did most of them towards the end, because this meant that I could put one stem going over another, over the flowers, or the flowers over the stems, crisscrossing them as they actually are in natural life. It's another very good reason for using the technique that I recommend, the one I use most of all, of, like a jigsaw, of painting the right colours, in the right shades, in the right shapes, in the right places. And if you do that, wherever, if they're comparatively right one to another, the jigsaw will gradually fit together and your painting will just appear. A hand will appear, a flower will appear, and they will be correct. If you just try and paint one flower on its own before painting the rest of the painting, it might not be relevant or correct to the rest of the painting later on, which would be quite wrong. So here with these yellow flowers I'm now painting, the marigolds, which range from a very cool lemon yellow through to chrome yellows and right into cadmium oranges up into a mixture of cadmium red. And to make those reds and yellows and oranges sing, then we need some purples around them. The opposite in the colour circle to yellow is purple. So if we put purple even on a beach, in the shadows next to yellow sand, the light will sing, the colours will appear to vibrate, and we use that in our paintings all the time. And the same with these yellow flowers here. We will use blues and purples against the yellows, and the reds against the yellows, and the reds against the green, to make the whole painting vibrate and sing, as the flowers did on this lovely summer's day. Another beauty of oil painting using this technique is the way you can build the paint up. Obviously acrylics can be built up and will dry very quickly, which is another lovely reason for using acrylic as an underpainting, because you can work very quickly over the top, even within half an hour if you're painting out of doors. In this case though, with these lovely yellow flowers and orange flowers, I was able to build up the petals by simply placing brushstrokes one after the other with thick impasto paint on, to almost make it a low relief of the flowers. The more colours we paint and the more colours we establish that are correct one to another, the easier it is to paint the rest, because then we can see the fine differences, the small differences in between the warms and cools and all the different colours. We can easily gauge the slight need for more purple into a pink, or a bit more cool into a warm, and so on. So even the little white flowers that we're placing in here weren't just white dots, they were very, very pale greens and creams and some pure whites amongst them. Look very carefully for the colours, especially on the photograph, because photographs are limited, the dyes are limited, and it isn't as good as painting out of doors than the real thing. It's more difficult painting from the real thing out of doors, but you actually can see far more colour there. In this new series of films, and this new film of painting figures in flowers, it's a very romantic theme, and we're going to see many different ways of using paint and techniques to use a series of similar photographs from my artist flower garden with children and with Rosie and other models, but we're going to be using almost entirely photographs and not be able to work in plein air over the winter. Even so, I'm going to try and make it feel as if we are, because I've had a lot of experience of painting outdoors in gardens, normally prefer to do so, but we can't always do that, either because of the weather, or the time of year, or the flowers just don't exist, or because of other difficulties. So in this case, in this film, we're going to be painting almost entirely from photographs and images we've taken earlier. But those images will have been taken artistically, I hope, will have been taken with a painter's eye. Again, when painting the red flowers, we're not just going to paint one or two reds. We're going to see just what colours are required to enhance those. I started with the cadmium red, but then came on to rose, which is a much cooler red, to help bring the brighter cadmium red forward, to give a glow to it. In the centre we can go into the alizarins or cooler reds, or even right down into something like Indian red or burnt sienna, which is a much duller but warmer brown. And that can be pushed back as well to give the feeling of an almost three-dimensional flower and effects, and these things coming forward, making the colours come one in front of another. One continuously has to make further adjustments too. Although the figure had been basically finished, once the flowers went in, it was quite clear that the other colours that were surrounding it were affecting the skin and flesh tones as well. So I had to start enhancing reflected light from those flowers, or strengthening warms and cools on the flesh. Then down to the dress as well. I realised that the sunlight was far brighter across the dress and had to make the shining fabric lighter on the creases by using some pale cream. But even the pale cream on its own wasn't enough, and I still had to put some very, very light blue against that, some cerulean with white, just a touch of cerulean into the white. Never try and mix white into your colour. Take the white and add a little tiny bit of colour to it, otherwise you'll end up with a great globule of paint. When I say don't add white to your colour, I don't of course mean that if you've got a main colour and just want it lightening slightly, that you don't add some white. I'm saying if you want a very light colour, don't add white to the base colour, add a little to the white. That makes more sense. Well, there we are. I think I finished this painting. Just make the signature now. A painting I've thoroughly enjoyed. I do love working in this way, and I think it reflects in that work. I think you see me enjoying myself in doing this. And I hope you do as well if you try this way of working. So I've set up my little photograph here beside my work ready to do. This is a piece of mount card, dark mount card, and it's rather nice to paint on with acrylics. It soaks in the paint a bit at first, but you soon get the layers built up, and it gives you a coloured ground already. So this is good quality acid-free mount card. And then down here we have the tools we're going to work with. Now let's work our way through. We've got various tubes of acrylics here. This is the way you normally see them in the shops. This is Acrylicolor itself, one of the originals. Acrylics can be, again, different qualities, the same as artist materials and students. And Acrylicolor is an artist quality, and of course you can get cheaper ones. But the only problem with the cheaper ones is that they're often thinner, and especially with the yellow, that can be a bit of a nuisance. Although I do remember that the lemon yellow in acrylic was not that good a quality. Or you can buy great big tubs as well. Depends how much you're going to paint with them. Now the next thing is this, which is called a stay wet palette, and that's a very useful tool. It's a palette which has on the bottom we put some kitchen roll or tissue paper, even blotting paper will do, and wet that, and the paints go on top. Now as long as you don't tilt it and slide it in the car, because the thing slides down otherwise, it's great because the dampness with the lid on keeps the paints wet forever. I mean, as long as it stays wet, those paints will stay wet. You know, with acrylics, one of the problem is they dry very, very quickly. I remember painting in Switzerland, and the stuff was drying on my brush before I could get it to the canvas. It was so hot. So that's a useful way of keeping your acrylics and working with them. Then I'm going to mix in the palette next to it. I like one of these big palettes. Now a cheaper alternative are these sort of sandwich boxes. These very thin boxes I managed to buy in a cheap plastic box shop. And two of those would be quite adequate. I mean, one will do for putting the paints in and one for mixing in. So there's another alternative and other ways of thought there to save some money. I'll move back on for a moment before we start. I'm going to use my nylon brushes again. I do like these nylon brushes for nearly everything. A good hard work, and I prefer a long handle as well, so I can reach out and touch the canvas without getting too close to it. And of course a bit of water, and there we are, ready to go. And I want to start with my larger brush. I'm going to start with the sky and horizon. I like to start with the horizon because it's usually a mid-tone. Actually, start with a rose in that. As painting into this card, things soak in very quickly. You might find my colours a little strange at first, but then I look at a colour and I see what's glowing through it, and then place the colours on top in broken colour to give it an effective light, to really get an effective luminosity of a hot summer's day. And this is where this business of different mediums comes in, because possibly if I was painting a Scottish scene, I might prefer to have watercolour and do just a few limited colours like ultramarine and Prussian and burnt sienna, yellow ochre and so on, and have it very dour and very grey. Now while that's drying off, I'm going to work on other colours coming down through there, and earlier on I've shown you how to do underpainting for distant trees, for instance like that there, and I'm going to do the same here and put a very light bluey mauve into that. And they get stronger as they come down there, so I've got to worry about that for the moment. Some cerulean up there, Now to my yellow. Come back and blend that in just a moment. But you see how already we've got a wonderful sparkle going on with this broken colour technique. While I've got that cerulean and that yellow in the palette, I'll just blend them together and you see what happens now. And we can use this again thinly like a glaze and just paint over the surfaces here of these treetops. So I'm just using the thin down colours to glaze in the distant colours that I want there. A little bit more warm there, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre into this bit here. A touch of white in that, just make it a bit lighter. I'm going to go coolly yet in there, but let's just see how that looks. It's quite bright in there, so paint that right up to there. A rapid way of painting. Again, I'm showing you ways that I use out in the field. I'm showing you ways that we use in plein air, so that you can do just the same when you're actually painting outdoors. It's a lovely way to work, very rapid. If the colour starts to sink too much as the board soaks it in, then you've got to go back and give it a second coat, but it will eventually seal itself off. Now I need to make a much warmer green there again to come in there. I'm going to take some of that purple as well and just add some of the green to that. I'm going to take some viridian now and add some viridian to that to give myself a lovely cool green here. And to thin it down a bit, just go back and add a glaze over some of this distant hill, just to give a bit more green to the summer colours of that, which will vibrate as well against the reds of the sky. So we're playing opposites in the colour circle here as well, of course. There we go. Now back down to this one. I'm going to take some raw umber now and add that to the colour and see how much warmer that is. Quite dark and quite warm back there. Maybe too much so we'll just... I'm leaving the figure out till the end. I'm going to just work my way down this field. Now we need to cover this area fairly rapidly. I'm going to get back to my big brush now, my largest of the... I like these semi-rounds, these filberts. You can get a nice thin blade to them and you've got control rather than just a flat, especially for this kind of work. So I want my dark colours first here, so I'm going to mix up a lot of that brown now. So I'm going to paint very rapidly and I'm going to paint an undercoat for this field. I'm going to make the field look very complicated, as if I spent hours and hours on it, but I'm not going to in fact. So very dark at first, because we want these dark shadows coming in down here. But it's still a very inexpensive way of painting. I haven't got a lot of paint out on my palette. While I've got that colour on my brush, I'll just come back in here and just touch in some of those darks again, which have been lost a bit as they've sucked in. You see the different effect that gives us. Right, now we build up the next tones, and now I want to warm green going on in the background. And we start to look at these deep, lovely, rich, bluey greens. It's probably failed. Rapid way of working, and just the same for outdoors. I know I've said it over and over again, but because I'm using a photograph does not mean to say that I'm not used to painting outside, or that I wouldn't use the same technique, and it works. Now I'll go back to my warmer yellows. I'm going to take some yellow ochre again now and add that to that green, and come in with that. And we'll leave the poppies till the very end. They're our fun bit. Watch out where things are light against dark. I can see here that the arm is going to be darker against these grasses, so I'm deliberately making sure now that I've got these light areas in. The round brush, I'm going to use one of the filberts again and make up some very light green. Let's see if we can use the blade of that filbert just to paint in some of these thinner stems. Now I think we can paint in some of the darker areas too. There's some nice purples going on in there. I'm just going to take the same brush and just use my purple with a little touch of red, little rose and purple, because there's some very nice grass heads going on here. I just want to see what happens. And here is another completely different painting done in the same series, but with a totally different, warmer colour palette. Grass heads are rather lovely. It's rather a nice purple. That'll do for the moment. Now we move to the figure. Let's work our way down. I'm going to actually start off with her face. So we want, now this is purple and a little bit of yellow ochre. Bit pinker there. Down her nose. Her arm down here, this purple that we're using. Highlight out the edge of the arm in a moment. That comes right round her fingers here. It's a lovely colour, isn't it? Perfect for what we're doing. And down here, I'll make that a bit lighter in a minute. A few more cools into that yet. Now we're using our burnt umber and the purple. Right. Part of the band can be in the same dark. And a little bit, another bit of white to that, a little bit into that colour as well. Down here, it's lighter there. Well, the hat has got to be yellow ochre and white, I reckon. So there's the warm white we want. We'll put some shadow on there in a moment, let it dry off first. And you see how that pushes the darker colours of the face back now. Now the dress, we've got some beautiful bluey greens going on down here, but there is some purple in it too, so I'm going to take my cerulean at first and add a little bit of rose to that, because it isn't pure cerulean. Let's just check that colour, beautiful colour in a minute. But for the moment, let's just get the dress painted. Get these colours in and get the comparisons, because we need to get one of these colours into another to even be able to compare what's going where. How warm is it? A bit more blue just there. Let's really feel for these colours. Right, now let's look at some of these lighter colours. The very, very light blue there. And we'll look at the edge of the dress down here and the way the light catches that. Now look at the difference that makes. You see once we start these highlights. That same light's going to be coming down over her shoulder here. In fact, there'll be a bit of cream here in a minute as well. Now on the warm, a bit of blue coming down top of that arm and her thumb and other fingers. And a wee tad on the watch strap. He looks better. Let's try that. Yes, that's more like it. Sometimes the acrylics are a little bit thin. So look here. A little bit more light reflecting down in the arm here. The fingers. And she's well on the way, isn't she? Now, the poppies, I guess, that's what's going to make the whole thing come alive. So let's take some cadmium red and we'll put it straight in there and see what happens. Yeah, it's not far out. I might have to put a bit of the cool reds amongst it as well. A very important one to have for a hand here that she's reaching out for. But I'm going to put a bit more warm back into her hand, I can see, because these flowers are going to be, this red's going to be reflecting off the dress more than I remembered. I'm going to take the rose and let's look at how the rose affects it. Because it's a much cooler red, it will make these others, we can glaze it, we can put it on more heavily, that's up to us. We've got some darks to go in the centre yet as well. Just the pinks. Nice and clean. Very light pinks. Okay. Put our signature in. I want to use a fairly warm colour, so I'm going to use some ochre. Down here. Well, we're going to have some fun now. We're going to try and paint some of this blackthorn blossom and some of this peach blossom together. And I'm going to use a technique, an experimental one, where we're going to splatter the paint. I'm going to put wet into wet acrylic ink first. And while it's still fairly wet, start splattering in the white and the background pinks. And then at the very end, come in with my Chinese brush and try and paint some petals. Now we're going to use two Chinese brushes in fact on this. We're going to use both the Hake for wetting the background and doing the wet into wet background, and then this one for doing this round Chinese brush for doing the petals. And I'm also going to use this brush, which is a bit stiffer, for doing some of the splattering. Once I've got that done, the paint I'm going to use, there's my acrylic inks ready, and some water, and a little tube of gesso, which I'm going to use for mixing the white. Try the gesso out on this. So straight in then with water, clean water. All the way across it. Plenty of water though, because I do want some lovely wet into wet effects. And again, we're going to drop in the light colours first, even so, because there are some nice little celandines at the bottom of this picture. We're doing a very sort of abstract painting with this. We're not copying anything, we're just using what is here. We're abstracting from. Remember that the word to abstract means to take from. So I'm going to start off then with this smaller brush and just drop in some of these celandines all around down here. Let them spread out. I'll come back to my Hake and we'll start putting in the light greens around them that are catching the sunlight here. We're using quite strong, vibrant but dark colours so that the white paint that I'm going to splatter on later will show up. Deep green to here. To go much darker than this yet. You can see how dark I'm going to go. It's lovely wet into wet effects. Fairly quickly into this if I want to keep wet into wet effects going. I'm going to get some very deep blues going on before I put any blacks in. Just get the leaf, the darks in between these leaves. Yes, I'm twisting the brush to get these dark effects of shadows between leaves down here. I do want this to spread out, so I might even get a diffuser later. If it refuses to spread, I'm going to get my diffuser and spray it. But this is what I want, these sorts of lovely effects like this. I really do want this stuff spreading out on the background. There we go. That's my lovely dark background done. Letting it spread wet into wet. A bit more dark just on these corners, just to balance it out. Let's just see what happens if we do flick a little bit of the white on as it is. The white gesso now. Let's just see what happens. Yes, we get quite nice effects. I'm going to have to go a bit closer though. I really need a brush that's going to give me even bigger blobs like that. So we have some of the smaller ones in the background. These little white flowers coming through here. And they really are, where these white flowers are, there's a lot of them. So let's really get into this. And I want some of that obviously to link into the colours, to blend into the colours behind. To get the background pinks of these flowers. And we can let that dry now, ready for doing our final flowers. Well, the pinks and whites are still drying, but while they are, I just want to go back into our little buttercups and celandines here and just drop some of this acrylic ink back onto it. While we're at it, we'll just add a little bit more green in there, down to this lower edge. Well, we've still got some wet paint with the darks there, but I think, generally speaking, most of them are dry enough. Let's give it a little go now. We'll start off with our whites. This brush should be ideal for this if we make it into a petal-shaped point, because down here we've got all these lovely little white mayflowers. right the way through and off the paper here, this branch of them, which is rather nice. And it seems to be working, doesn't it? Right, we get these pinks in a minute of the peach blossom, could be rather attractive. You can always come back into it with a little bit of dark in a minute, just to give a few of the centre of these flowers a little bit of the dark stamens. It's almost abstract, but then again anything repeated makes a pattern. So we'll do some of the petals coming up here as well. And we'll use a thin brush in a minute just to paint in a few of the stems and branches to show that these things are linked to twigs, to trees. That's looking rather nice. Now let's come to these larger pink flowers. I'm going to mix the purple first. And so put these quite large, there's a large stem of blossom coming through here. So we can make quite big petal shapes this time. This is the cooler warm. It's a bit like Japanese or Chinese brush painting because we have to keep the shapes simple and about what we're painting about these shapes of the flowers. Continue these larger petals, so the splatter comes behind, as if there are masses and masses of them blowing in the breeze. You can see where I wanted the dark background now, can't you? Right down to here, through, two little bits of pink, maybe just coming through amongst the white of the trees there. Now what I've got to do is go back into this with a bit more white and some of the deeper reds at the very end. I just want to establish that there's a whole load of pink blossom up going through here. brush, come back and paint some of the lighter tips on these first. Nice and thickly. We're using like a fat on lean here. We're using the thicker paint over the thinner paint so that the sunlight catches these petals around the edges. Get this effect of sunlight. How pretty that is. We have all this lovely sunlight across these little flower petals then. A little pink, more pink down the bottom here I think, and we'll just link in some of these explosions down here. That's better there. Now those reds I was promising you, we're going to use a rose first. Liquid into the middle of these. I'm going to come back in with a slightly warmer red in a moment. Which will make it sink back a little bit more. Bring this forward. Not overdo those reds too much, just a tint here and there, because they are more in the distance, those. Now down to our much warmer red. A little of that where the sunlight just catching it. On some of these edges. You see how thickly I'm painting this. Because they're acrylics, they're not going to be too long before they dry. Alright. And they have beautiful little stamens in them, so what I want to do now is get a finer brush and get a small Japanese brush. I'll use this little fellow, he's rather fun. And I want to mix up some quite darks now. Into here we've got these little stamens coming out. While it's wet, we can paint these in. Just drag them out. This will help them blend back in a little. There we are, we get the feel of that. Now we need to look at the twigs that are supporting this and the lighter bluer twigs down here that are supporting that. So again, I've got to change my brushes. Start off with, there's a branch coming down through here. To get rid of some of that paint, so there's too much on there. I can make a blade out of the brush, and with a bit of luck with the blade I can indicate in some of these twigs. So again, it's still fairly abstract, but we're getting there. Maybe there's a few of these light blues just coming through behind. A little bit of sky showing through here. Just to make the blue play against the warms of the... Now I need some black to finish off. We've just got to bring the stem down through now. I want some black coming up through here. Let's hope it shows up. I think it should do, yes. Maybe we have some darks coming down around these as well. I think we're just about there, you know. We'll have a few shadows, little dark shadows happening back in there with the black. Just to make it stand out a little more amongst these flowers. Dark down into here. There we are. That'll do us. Little abstract flower painting using the splash technique. Okay, we've got 3 brushes, a 16, a 10 and a 6. This one's an oval, which is quite nice, and then 2 rounds, nice big brushes for the paint. I think this should do the painting. And we're going to make the background first and then work up to the middle distance and some of the texturing and the birds at the very end. For my base colour I'm going to lay on some cobalt and ultramarine first, and then add into that some cerulean blue. This acrylic paint dries very quickly, so I'm not able to blend very easily. I'm using a broken colour technique of one colour over another and then letting one colour show through that other one with short, quick brush strokes. While it's still wet I'm able to blend it in and use some water as well to soften it in. Having worked up the colours for the sky, I can then start to work in the distant trees and effects of hedges in the background. I wanted a fairly dark background so the birds and thistles would show in sunlight against that. And we'll work our light and dark areas of these leaves gradually up, letting the sky shine through behind. Use a whole series of different greens and blues to do this, from my cerulean blue through the cobalts and ultramarines. In fact, we can hear the gold crest actually in the background right now that I've been photographing. We give this illusion of something that's very complicated and detailed, had ages spent on it when it hasn't really. You see, I'm using a cooler, a bluey green now to give some distance to the leaves in the background. So we'll make slightly warmer greens to catch the sunlight as it comes across these leaves. You can see what's happening now, don't you? Well, I think it's time to start to work up the middle distance now. Catch just a few more bits of light on here perhaps. Okay. Next I want to establish where all these lighter areas of thistle heads are. So I'm going to make quite a light grey with a little touch of pink into it. We'll start off with some lemon yellow and a little touch of rose. Start to just put some of these lighter colours in here. Well, that's given me an idea. You see how we get that thistle effect. So having shown you that, we can now go back to painting the darks in and put the lights in again afterwards, which we can do with acrylics, which we can't do with watercolour. It's given an indication of lots of thistle heads just catching the sunlight into the background. Now I'm going to start working down around here. Got to get rid of all these white areas of paint first before we can really work up the special effects. See, this board is very absorbent. It takes in the paint almost immediately it hits the surface, which has both advantages and disadvantages in fact. Got to keep varying between our different blues and blue-greens to get these background darks. To keep the spiky feeling going. I'm not painting anything exactly, I'm just using what's on my photographs to feel my composition as I go along. It's very intuitive as well, it's almost semi-abstract in the way that one does what one wants and what one feels right here. Not just copying or following the photograph all the time. Get rid of all this white and we can come back and put them back in again where we want them. See the variety of colours that I'm actually using here. It's quite large, isn't it? Different blue greys and greys that I can see going on behind that I want to get the effects of all these thistles going with. Painted very loosely at first and gradually I'm going to tighten up in my usual way. If I start loose I can finish tight. You see I've almost got rid of the white now. I'm still using thistle effects here to get the feeling of these leaves and thistles. I'm still using thistle type brush marks, in other words, of dragging it across and making little spiky areas. And that's a much better background to paint onto now. I can actually start to establish some of the blues and greens of the actual leaves. This is a very warm green, but we're going to be using much cooler greens as well. And what few white areas I've got now are nearly all to do with those thistle heads. I should come back over this with some darks as well, of course. These lovely downy bits of thistle. Absolute bed of thistles. And this is just our base painting, remember. We're going to work over this in far more detail. And that'll do for the base. Before I start on the birds, I'm just going to work a few more of these darks, and as you see I've already been doing a little bit. Now I'm going to paint two of the birds and start with this one and use smaller nylon artificial sable. Right, let's get a base coat on, find our shape first again because we've painted over a bit of it. Now I want to start mixing up some slightly darker shadow into that, because we can paint it like a mixture of watercolour and oil paint. This acrylic, it's quite versatile. The colour on my brush, I tend to like to use it because it seems a shame to waste it. Might as well, I've got it there mixed. So I've got the correct colour, we'll use it straight away. So it's a bit like painting by numbers. We fill in the shapes with the right colours in the right places and the things should appear gradually. That's where that leg should go, and then the other one should be here somewhere. So you need to paint a base coat over and then gradually work one back over the other. You can see how I'm using the tip of the brush now, spreading it slightly to get the light feathery effects. So we'll actually finish certain parts of it in one go. I rest my hand on here now, which I couldn't do with oil paint. That's another thing to mention, of course, is one of the eases of working with this is it dries so quickly you can work over it. Getting darker and darker. I still like to work from light to dark most of the time, but as I say, the beauty of this is that you can come back and work any direction you want. And so you don't normally see me painting in such detail, but this is partly to show you how, and partly just because I like to enjoy doing different things at different times. I don't like to be stuck with the same thing. Some of the galleries say you've got to do that to become famous, so everybody knows who you are by your style. But do I really give a monkey's? My signature's there if they enjoy the work for what it is. Again, as I said, that's one of the beauties of oils and acrylics, is you can work backwards and forwards and put lights on whenever you want. As I said in one of my earlier films, I do find that the yellows in acrylics can be really yucky. They just don't have the body, so I'm going to paint one on, let it dry. And we'll come back into it in a moment. As pretty colours we can get. And we can paint the light over the dark, which is the beauty of having a paint acrylic paint and so on. A bit lighter in places as well. Let's see if we can flatten the brush out and dry it out a bit. Just use the very end to tickle in carefully some of these feather textures. And I think the rest will work when we get the other lighter and darker colours in, but you see the idea. Now let's have a go at the cockbird. Then I'm going to start straight away with the yellow because I want to get that yellow dried and established so that I can get a really strong colour on there afterwards. You can see the pencil mark showing through, so it does not cover very well acrylic yellows usually. I'll let that dry off and then we'll put some more colour over the top to build it up. So straight away in with the colour. Let's look at the shadowed areas, the greys. There's quite a mixture of shadows in this one, ranging from quite cool, like this one, which is more almost a turquoise. Let's get this white area covered so we can find the correct colours. Back over to here again. Carry on. And see where the colours are blending, because there's some nice warms blending down. I'll be painting all those details of that later. We'll build this up bit by bit, gradually adding the feathering texture as we go along. Where I'm going to have the red here, I'm going to paint the yellow across now, so I can get that much brighter red again. I'm going to come back to that yellow again because it's ready for a second coat. And it's gone into slightly more of an orange as well, so I'll add a bit of yellow ochre, which will give me a richer orangey colour down there. A little touch of burnt sienna. Now, talking about these reds here that are going to happen, we'll go very dark at first. Might need a bit more purple even into that. Once we start to paint in the dark, you see how it stands out. You get all these base colours established, then we can work back in and get the drawing and the detail correct. I'll be able to paint all the rest of the birds so you know how it's done, and then come back to the background to show you that. Now we're coming on to some brighter reds. Some cadmium in here. Should really sing out on this. Wow, look at that, yeah. I've got to darken it down, in fact it's almost too bright. Let's bring it across that black a bit to settle into it. Nice chin there. Just a little dark into that at the edges. So we'll pull into that bird now. We can look at some of the shadowed areas again, the greys. Now, into the eye, just an indication of light shining. Sounds very careful. The eye is there. Not a lot, but just indicate. The sun shining down it. And just see what's going to happen later now when we really start to paint these details in. And some of these shapes are going to have to come out and be shown more when the light's painted around them. Just to give you an example, you can see, start painting this thistle head in, and behind here, it will show behind that bird. The bird is a part of the whole painting. We can't just do the painting and that's right, don't need to bother about the bird. No, because the bird is a part of it. It mustn't stand out like a sore thumb. The whole painting is one united object. So we don't paint just a thing on its own, we paint it related to the stuff around it. Even that bit of purple makes such a difference, you see. And make things come alive. See how that bird stands out almost 3D now. Okay, I think that's given you a good enough idea for the moment of how the birds are going to be painted. So I'll finish off the other 4 or 5 birds now, and then we'll come back to doing the final details. Right, well, we're down to our last detailed painting now. We finished the birds, as you can see. I might do a little bit to them later, not much. So it's really a matter of getting all these thistles. I'm trying to make these soft effects with those. So I'm going to mix up some light colours now, some cream. Let's just try the cream neat first. I've got to get this just right, the consistency, because if we want to use the tip of the brush and flatten it out a bit, then the paint has to be able to flow really creamily. A Series 54 Zero brush, so that should be fine enough. Let's see. I'm going to use this light to also help the bird to stand out a bit more. I've got a lot of work to do with these little pieces, just tickling them out. You can see we're gradually building up more and more and more of these thistle bits, thistle heads, lightly shining in the sunlight. Paint it thinner, we get a lighter, softer colour, and if I put it on a little bit thicker look, we get a stronger bright. This gives me my warms and cools of the sunlight catching over the surface. So I've got to paint the paint a little bit thicker if I want it lighter, or it will go slightly transparent and the underpainting will show through, which can work to our advantage, as you can see. But look carefully where we want these light bits to be, these highlights. At the moment we're painting this warmer cream on, but I'm going to put some very light blue in later as well. put in my creams and now I've made a very, very light pink with some rose and white. I'm going to put a few more warms into this fluff to really get the effect of the sunlight and to make the cool seem cooler and the warm seem warmer and all of those things I was saying. We'd play the opposites in rough against smooth, dark against light and so on. Which will also help the birds because there's a lot of cream in the birds, and if we get more pink into these fluffy seed heads, then it'll make the birds stand out a bit more. It's a lot of work, but it's quite fun. You can see the effects as we go along, growing. Oh, lovely, that pink shines out. Beautifully it shines out there. And from these we're going to come into some yellow ochre, which will be a bit warmer obviously into these seeds. Very light highlights at the moment. We'll come back on some more mid-tones and warmer tones to make these lighter colours stand out even more on their own right. Yellow ochre and white, as I was just saying, which is a nice mustard yellow, but with white it goes a warm, lovely warm yellow. Let's give some more depth to these. Go back and look at some of the cools going on. Some of these little fronds are quite a nice light blue and shadow. We must keep observing, it's not just one colour, that's it, finished. We have to look looking at all these lovely colours that are going to help to make this painting. See the difference that makes putting that cool shadow in there, because it will make the other colour seem so much brighter. Do you think the bird needs a bit more? Well, paint it. If I use this cool here, it's going to make the pink seem pinker, which could be good. We're now coming up to our final colours. We're going to start working a few of the darks back in again as well, and just bringing out some of these real warms. And there might just be one or two greens need picking out a bit, much more turquoisey green into here as well. And we're almost there now, I don't need to do too much more. There's a few little thistle heads I want to paint to get a bit more purpley warmth in. So let's have a look at these last thistle heads. Sort of deep purple, blue. We're painting some of the darks back in again now, but they're nice warm darks. Look at the vibrance that gives, these last strokes that can just pull things together. This purple's rather nice, so we'll use it quite a bit. You see how it's just livened up this painting, and I don't think we need to do much more now. Very darks now. Just a little black in here and there, just to give those last bits of shadow. There we are then. I think we'll call that done. Voila! Let's not go too far with it. This time I'm going to do acrylic for a relation of Harry's, and she's very kindly been working on my back and joints because she's a specialist, and is able to massage and help my difficulties. So in return, as a small gesture really towards all she's done, I'm going to do a painting of her house. And we've got this picture I took this afternoon. She doesn't know yet. But I want to push it a bit further with these colours as well and really make a nice, bright, lively painting out of it. So again, we'll start with a fairly large brush, this one, filbert again. And as usual, work with the sky, the light colours first. And I think this time a little light blue to start with up here, just to get into it. Fairly thinly at first, let's just work up. I can see all my shapes are going to be left behind for the tree here. So at the moment there's a fair bit of water on my brush and I'm just sort of staining the canvas. And then strengthen it just a little with the blue. A little touch of warm, little touch of the pink, just to start to give it a bit more. Right, having got the blue of the sky done, we've got to think about the clouds, and on the photograph they just bleached out white, as photographs often do. So what I'm going to do is make a very, very light ochre, take some yellow ochre and white, paint in the rest of the cloud areas with that first of all. Just basically giving it a staining coat. I want this behind the trees as well because I'm going to let the colour glow through the trees. So yellow, ochre and white. See how quickly this paint dries, which is not so good when you're using acrylics and you want to still blend. So I've got to get this colour in quickly before it does completely dry, or it's just not going to blend. Now we've got a nice glowing sky going on. We didn't have to use lots of white on that. Having tones just slightly darker allows me to give sparkling colours elsewhere. Right, while I'm at this, I'll come on down to this bit here and I'll use some very similar colours down there just to get going, but perhaps a fraction stronger. Just to get rid of the white canvas really, just to start to feel these colours. The yellow of the house behind here, which is a bit yellower, so make it that little bit stronger. So let's get a good underpainting of these stronger, vibrant, pretty, sunny spring Appalachian pinks and greens and so first of all I just want to block in and find these, get rid of this white. Okay, let's whack in some of these lighter yellowy greens now. What to do is cover this white canvas as quickly as possible. Use the brush in different directions to get the feeling of these leaves, the canopy of these leaves coming across through here. These greens seem very strong at the moment, but they won't once they get the darker colours and other colours mix in with them. So it's just a preliminary coat to get rid of the white canvas. Right, I'm going to go down a brush size or two by using the edge of a filbert. You can have quite good fun with the branches, and you can go down to a very thin brush straight away. We just press carefully and press more heavily as we come down, and you can finish up with a heavier line. I'm going to establish quite a lot of my darks at this stage. By flicking that brush around and down here, we can start to get the darks already into it's a fairly illustrative piece, and just to indicate those steps there. I'm going to come across some of these darks with the greens anyway, so I'm not over bothered, because I'm going to tint them down a bit. So I can use my brush thinly that way, like this, to make the branches, or thickly like this from the sideways on. Very handy brush. And we'll use a rigger brush for doing the very fine work later on. Just want to get a basic structure now.
Ooh, that's quite nice.
It's different, isn't it?
Yeah. Found out that to go to that Biltmore, it's $65 each.
What?
So I'm assuming you don't want to do that.
I think that's a bit of a rip-off, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous. Nobody charges that much.
I know.
What do you get for that? A full dinner?
You get a tour, that's it. Okay.
You see how we can use this green to also glaze over colours. Well, that gives us more of a coherence as well. You can see how now that I've painted the darks over the lights, I'm now going back with the lights to put back in the details of light shining through the trees to be very effective. Nice and loose, and let the eye of the beholder do the work, don't do it all for them as usual. You can see how quickly our painting can build up and look tremendously detailed when really we haven't done a lot of detail. I think all that's left to do now on this is just to put in these finer twigs around the place, just to give a bit more texture to it. So I'll take a number 2 round and just come in with some of these very fine twigs. Okay, this morning we're going to have a go at painting on some mount card. It's quite nice to paint on with acrylics, and I'm going to do this, or have a go at playing with this limited palette I've got here of colours to try these azaleas. A whole splash of colour here, and treat it again fairly loosely. Now, because the paints have tended to be slightly thinner than the oil paints that I like to use, I feel I've got to paint the light colours first to get the luminosity on this. I'm not going to bother drawing anything out, just going straight in with the colour and try and just enjoy these little... It's a very much an impressionist piece anyway. I think it lends itself to it because of all these little flowers. So I suppose I'm almost building it up like a watercolour. Each time you do a painting, there are different pressures on you for different effects. So it forces you, which is nice, to learn new things and paint new ways. So here I'm painting on a very absorbent surface with paint that isn't really that vibrant to try and get that vibrant quality. So we'll work up these greys and then come back in with very light creams, just a tint off white and whites into these lovely azaleas. The brush strokes are almost petal size as it is. Into that white we can put these blue and pink greys. hoping that as I go on with this, the darks will pull it all together again. We could have kept it very high key. I've decided to work right through to these darks into texture, and then to bring some of the lights back on a little bit on top, but to get the feeling of this very, very complicated mass of foliage and textures going on. Some of them, just to bring them out a bit. Okay, we have 3 brushes, number 10, a 16 and a 6, a smaller round, an oval and a large round. We'll start with a large round just to block in the background greens here first of all. But a canvas that I've already put a black acrylic onto just to give me a dark ground and work up very, very quickly. Again, I'm going to draw out, I'm just going to enjoy the colours, the shapes and the flowers and move things around a bit for my own benefit. Stay Wet palette that we used the other day on a painting, we've still got paint in it from over a week ago now, so it shows you how long they'll keep. I've just put some new paper into the mixing palette, that's all. I want to make a very dark green, so I'm going to use a bit of cobalt And I don't have the Prussian blue, so I'm going to have to use a bit of black and some yellow. Give me a nice deep green as a background into these colours, just to start working in, some of these tones over the black. And I'm just going to mix the lemon yellow and the cobalt, lemon yellow and cobalt together to start to give some of the lighter greens here, just to establish where I'm going. Keep working all over the canvas, not just in one place. So now cerulean and lemon, some of these really bright greens here. Let's just start to look at the cool, bright greens that are going on in places. Mixing these yellowy greens now. There you go. And lighter bluey greens. Even pinks and things coming up here, all sorts of wonderful colours reflecting on from the light into this painting. Just using the brush very loosely at the moment just to establish some of these different colours, and it's just great fun. So I wanted this garden for, was to do these sorts of paintings. I'm going to change brushes now to my little oval flat orbit. This one, the sun's just come behind a cloud a moment, so colours have gone from the vibrance here for a second, but it's given me a chance to see what I'm doing. So, got some more colour in. Just trying to make some more darks now. I need to go down to much darker greens. Yeah, that's a nice darker, still warm green to go in amongst all this foliage. Start to feel what I can do. With these colours. Take a look at these lovely cornflower blues first of all. And they are a mauvey blue. Let's see how strong they are. That's quite a cool shadow for one. Using a bit of purple and cobalt to establish the mid-tone. All sorts of wonderful colours happening down into here. And we get the cobalt blue coming directly in to some of them. I'm going to take some of the purple and add a little bit of white to it. So we can do with that first of all, just check it out. Yeah, some of that's coming down into here. to start to add some more of that red into it, the rose, bright rose into that. Pick out these lovely pinks that are going on back behind here. Use the edge of the brush as a petal maker. So when you think we've done as light as we can, no, we've still left ourselves room to go a bit lighter still if we need to. And now some of the pure rose and a little bit of the cadmium red, and let's really start to make this painting sing. It's blowing my flower around a bit, so it's my job to see what I'm doing, but it's really bright colours we can get with acrylics and oils. Very deep purples amongst these flowers too. Now we've got to start on the yellows, these lovely marigolds, and I'm going to start off with a mid yellow with a chrome yellow, and into that yellow, just paint that pure at the moment, and just see where that actually comes into here. A little bit of lemon yellow now to make it a bit brighter as we come out here in the sunlight. This comes up this bush here of little yellow daisies that one there is got to be worked up into here. Going to start a bit more orange into those now. With the yellows yet though. This yellow is so yucky. But it's still very thin paint. I prefer a much more opaque. This is why I like oil paint, because it is much heavier and thicker than this. Start to indicate some petals of these lovely marigolds. Go back into those petals in a moment with a darker colour to see if we can pick them out a bit more. Right, I'll carry on with this. Got the small brush now, a number 6, and we'll see if we can get some of the details in. Got a lighter little highlights and details and a bit of drawing. So let's take some of the darks first, which it is starting. Got some very deep purples. I'm going to actually mix in here because I'm going to throw this whole lot away when I've finished here now. And in between and around some of these flowers as well, there's going to be some drawing. Stems and things in and give the feeling of masses of flowers quite quickly, quite easily. And these yellows are so important, these oranges and yellows. I mean, they are really vibrant here, the oranges. It's just not coming out as I want. Lovely blue-grey I've managed to mix, just which might help this plant here in the centre. Of course the colours happening elsewhere a little bit too. Here, some lighter greens still catching the light as it comes through. There we are, we've got the yellows coming now there, and hopefully here. Happening behind there, a bit more orange, but let's really try and make this sing again. Sun's come out again, so I want to pick up on these colours. The sunlight shining through those yellows now. If we can get a similar yellow with this, onto here, some of those oranges too, which I'm not getting yet. Not happy with it yet by any means. Having to struggle with this painting quite a bit to get what we want. A nice orangey red there, let's see if it's going to give us what we want. Not only just. Lovely oranges going on down in there. There, that's a bit more like it. Certainly going through here, yeah, into there too, just through the background, just to pull it together. Go back to these very light pinks because I've got a feeling now that we need to make a very light pink to catch some of the light on the edges of these petals. Some of them are a bit more yellow, we'll deal with that in a moment. So it's important it is to keep looking for colour, keep looking for it, to keep changing, to keep pushing. Once you see it in one place, you start to see it in another. Just come in there and bring them out again. Find these dark shapes in between just to draw out these flowers a fraction. What I want now is that very, very light, very light highlighting just on the end of these little bits of branch. Okay. Nice loose signature. If I can get the brush to work. Well, not everything always goes according to plan, and this acrylic I did earlier in the garden, painting on plein air, I never was completely happy with it, and just sometimes it's worth working on a painting further. It was an acrylic, so I can paint oils over it. You can't put acrylic over oils, but you can put oils over acrylic. So while I still have the oils out for my last painting, I'm going to take two photographs, one of the same scene that I was painting and one a bit later on, which is a bit more on the left hand side here, and use those to work further into this painting and pull it together a bit more and clarify it some more. It still seems a bit jumbled to me and needs a bit more detail, a bit more work, which I couldn't do at the time. So let's see what happens when we work a bit more on this painting and see if we can improve it. So the thing is, looking at the photographs, is just how much needs doing. These marigolds will rather nicely go down here, and one or two details of these flowers picked out a bit more will just, I think, pull this painting together. So we've got a nice foundation to work on. It's very loosely painted, but it just needs to go that stage further, a little bit more tightly. Let's see what we can do. I'm hoping I'm only going to need 3 brushes for this. I've got 2 2s there and a 3, all artificial sables, nylon rounds. And I'm hoping that these will be ideal for just doing the petals straight off. This very fine pointed one more for the stems, but these two hopefully will be ideal for the petals. So let's see about putting on some pure colours into this and see how it looks. We'll take some chrome yellow immediately and look at some of these marigolds and just see if this thicker oil paint, which is a more opaque, heavier colour than the pigment, than the original acrylic, which was rather thin, I thought. And this is one trouble with using cheaper paint, is that if you use cheaper paint, the paint's often slightly thinner. But you can see from this the purity of colour we can get with these oils, which is going to brighten up this whole picture and pull it together, and I think it'll improve it greatly. And into that we can immediately paint some cadmium orange, and look how beautifully that brings that out. And already we've got more detail going on than we had before. And I think it's improving it straight away personally, but leaving this lovely loose background. So we'll just use these brushes to paint in the petals all over the place here. Just painting in single easy strokes to represent these petals. Much brighter these colours are in the oils than these cheaper acrylics. Well, now that you know the basics of how this is done, let's see the rest of the film at high speed and see how it develops. This way of painting an acrylic underpainting is one I've used several times before. It's very useful when painting out of doors because it means that you can do an underpainting that dries very, very quickly, and on the same day, in fact within the same half an hour, immediately start painting with oils on top and doing your final details. Oil paint, of course, is a wonderful medium, so creamy and rich, and you can ladle it on in impasto, which I'm doing here. I'm actually building up the flowers with the brush. So, one final reminder, we can paint oils over acrylics, but we shouldn't paint acrylics over oils because they're a shiny surface and they won't take it. Well, there you have it. I think the painting's almost finished at this stage, so we'll just paint a few more details and some of the stems, and that'll be it. Some more planes of branches and twigs, stems coming in. So I'm going to now paint this one with acrylics on board at the same time as we're doing our other painting each and the one in the middle. We're going to do a painting each, and then in between take it in turns on this canvas to do one between the two of us, which could be quite fun. We've got the usual acrylics here. I'd like me to do another acrylic just over here with the same view up here. Just trying to take shots of the work and see what to worry about that. That's my bit done, now it's Harry's turn. Okay, I've worked out my basic composition just using a bit of light acrylic. Now to start putting the colours in. You reckon that's it, do you?
Yeah.
Well, let me photograph that and this. In England, and I've just taken this painting that I was doing in acrylics over there in North Carolina, and I'm bringing it back with a bit more oils because, as I said at the time, the acrylics were very thin and weren't giving me the brightness I required. So here we are, worked into it about 10 minutes with the oils, giving it brighter greens and turquoises, and I'm just going to finish off and do a little bit more. To bring out these greens a bit more around here. In fact, that leaf would be better. I think it needs to be a bit darker across there. that will make the other greens cooler. If it would be it.